meaning and multiple meanings and multiple usages and use in poetry and history and in religion. I was just fascinated by Chinese. So I think that was the first big change for me, that I was going to be a European language major. I was going to be a German major, and I was going to study Swedish because my background, my mother is from Sweden, and that wiped everything out, completely wiped my mind clean. I decided Chinese took over my mind, the language took over my mind, and I was just working on Chinese language at that time. Now, Mr. Ha gave me much more credit for Chinese poetry than I think I deserve now. There was a point where I could recite something, and now I can't recite a single line, so I'm not going to try. I went to graduate school for history. After we were in Nanjing together, I went to study Chinese history, and again, at that time, there were fewer people studying Chinese history than there are today, but I was interested in the roots of change in China. This is the early 20th century. That's where I started. I wanted to look at kind of political change in the early 20th century before the 1911 revolution. But then I discovered the Song dynasty, and 1,000 years ago, there was so much change going on, debates, political debates at the court, and Wang Anshi, and all of the things that happened in ancient times that I think were the root to the Chinese bureaucracy, that kind of Chinese governmental order that stayed in place until the 19th century. Many changes in the Song, I found their importance to be greater than what I was looking at, for me anyway, greater than what I was looking at for the later period around the 20th century. So I gave up on the Xinhai Geming and decided to study Wang Anshi Bianfa. And from there, I got interested in China's relationship with its neighbors. And that's where Vietnam came in. And I think I'm saying all of this is just, I didn't have any straight line in my study about China. I went from one element to another element. I was interested in Chinese art. I forgot about saying a little bit about that. I think you're very lucky that with Mr. Ha's class to be looking at kind of the fundamental ideas, kind of the root ideas of a particular society. Because if you study a little bit about art, you study a little bit about history, you study some about literature, you get a greater understanding and a deeper understanding than anyone who studies just a single piece about a society. I found a lot of political scientists who work on China. Now that I'm in academics, I find political scientists often don't have a very deep understanding of Chinese culture, or they don't have any understanding of Chinese language. I think that you need to be very general in your background. You need to have a kind of a broad cultural background to really understand a society and a people. So you're very lucky to be with this class and talking about these ideas, because they're fundamental to the arguments that you hear when you turn on the radio or read the paper, read the New York Times. A lot of these same ideas that Mr. Ha is talking about are being talked about. In some cases, the people using the ideas don't even know their own origin. So you're ahead of many of these political figures who know that these are the kind of fundamental notions of American society, American history, but they don't even know themselves where they came from. So I think in that way, you're lucky to be discussing all of these ideas. Now, I don't know, I want to be helpful, so I could take any questions that you all have about something specific that you're interested in, or something I might be able to help with. Does anyone have any questions?
So all of you can type in the chat, or you can talk directly, and you can tap me and I can open for you to talk. For example, here is my reflection on Mr. Anderson's experience in study Chinese society, and you guys are studying American society. a lot of experience can be very useful to you. For example, the way he improved his understanding of Chinese society by traveling, making friends, and understanding Chinese philosophy, classical literature can be very useful for us. And number two, Mr. Anderson has been teaching in academics basically all his life. And in one of our correspondence, Mr. Anderson said he is internal students. He's internal students because he spent years teaching and researching, traveling. Basically, to my understanding, he's a seeker, the seeker of truth, the seeker of a deeper meaning of things. Okay, I hope that's all you guys need to do. A lot of our classmates are in law, business, government, media. Okay, that's our Nanjing Johns Hopkins Center classmates, what they do. But sometimes when we watch the news, when we even see these academic talk, if these people don't have a deeper meaning, they don't have deeper understanding of our people, the soul of a nation is very dangerous. The superficial understanding, a little bit of education is a very dangerous thing because our life depends upon their decision in a certain way. And here's my shallow understanding, and Mr. Anderson can correct me if I'm wrong. United States and China are very different countries. A very different civilization. The understanding between the two is actually very difficult. It's actually very difficult. It's a very rare opportunity for you guys to study for the deeper meaning about how these two civilizations and cultures calculate their differences, or else these people who have a power, who can influence our life, their brain can be framed into a framework that influence our life and is very dangerous. Some stereotype deeply framed in the media, in the social media, in the mass media. I see all these ideas keep on repeating itself again and again and again and again. And unfortunately, these are the people who are going to make decisions for all of us, for good and for bad. So that's why in the very early age, I hope you guys will like Mr. Anderson, meet more people, open to more ideas, and really appreciate the opportunities. In your tender young age, you can travel internationally and meet with very different experience and open your mind to seeking what? Academic freedom. This freedom can only happen if you work hard to seek different experience. So I hopefully Mr. Anderson will be our guest speaker very often, and all of you, I think, can benefit tremendously from his experience in the American academia. For example, his life experience and his exposure to high school, private school, public school, the whole educational system can ease your path, can make your life so easier. One or two good advice can make you guys' life so easier. For example, how to understanding literature, American history, his understanding of a different American political intellectual figure like Thoreau. What Thoreau mean to him? For example, Mr. Anderson, I haven't shared this with you yet. For example, in one of the discussion we have in Harbin, I still remember, I asked you, hey, let's way back, let's in 1980 something, right? 89.
1988.
I'm asking you, hey, what do you read in American literature? Which book influenced you the most? You probably forgot. You said Moby Dick. Make sense?
Yeah.
Moby Dick. And that is the same book I'm torturing Jeffrey. I say you have to finish that whole book.
It still is the book that influenced me the most, I think. How for you? It hasn't changed.
Wow. So I will sell the same idea to my students here. Moby Dick, because it's about soul. You know, the really American deep psyche.
Yeah.
The exploration, the relentless seeking for deeper meaning no matter what.
Yeah.
That deep
for better
energy.
or for worse.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's good or bad. And now I understand in the real life, it can be good and bad at the same time. This relentless energy that is from the small 13 colony in New England, the tremendous expansion. And number one is searching for power, wealth, but it's also for knowledge and that thirsty for knowledge, for truth.
Right.
But also the stubbornness, right?
And stubbornness.
Also the stubbornness, the relentless, uncompromising thing. That's the deeper, especially in the American New England intellectual pursuit. So you guys, like for example, Helen, Emily, Cherry, right? Cherry is young, you know. Cherry, how old are you, Cherry? 7th grader. I'm seriously. Last time I told you I'm so jealous of you guys because for my age, I have a thirsty for knowledge since a young age. A thirsty for knowledge that cannot be satisfied by the restriction, right? The social circumstance. But you guys have the resources, the opportunity, the openness. It just needs a little more effort, maybe. Okay, for my understanding. And I want to utilize Mr. Anderson's basic experience. For example, one small dialogue we have. I still remember in your house, your family are so graciously invite me to visit your family. I have that with your parents, okay, your dad, about why you study Chinese, and they talk about the Americans' ignorance about Asia, the complexity, and also you are meeting with Fairbank.
Oh, right, I did meet John King Fairbank. Yes,
John Fairbank is the #1 person in Harvard Asian Study program, even during the Cold War. Even during the Cold War time, when study Chinese is politically incorrect, right?
Yeah.
It's my Marxism time. He experienced so much difficulty. And when the United States and China was in deep confrontation, when the people supposed to be hate each other, John Fairbank, still in Harvard University, raised up his banner to study Chinese philosophy, Chinese history, and keep the understanding channel open. Yeah. So when the China first opened to the United States, he was received in Beijing, I think, and everybody applauded. Okay, even under very difficult political situation. And Mr. Anderson in New England, in Connecticut, is very different, upbringing, but he had the opportunity to meet with Fairbank. I think that experience open a new perspective, can open a new freedom. I mean, in terms of career development, in terms of your understanding of the world. I think right now, for example, like Helen, like Emily, you guys already coming from Beijing. That is such a total different environment. I still remember when I first joined this class, right? I'm trying to teach you guys about Gone with the Wind, To Kill a Mockingbird, about slavery, and you guys don't have any concept. the social concept of what that means. Okay, you have to stay like me, stay in South Carolina for 5 years. So Jamie must be sympathetic with me. I mean, his dad do. When he heard I was in South Carolina, his eyes were full of sympathy. Okay, full of sympathy. But you have to be there to really understand Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
You really understand To Kill Mockingbird. So traveling deeper on talking and reflection.
Yeah.
That's what I learned from talking with Jamie, Mr. Anderson, and talking with his family. I learned more from my classmates. Listen, I learned more from my classmate, my roommate. I lost touch with him. Okay, I learned more about American society from my classmates than from my professors. So I want you guys to be more open to your classmates. Utilize this opportunity to talk and understanding, and maybe even want to talk with the older generation like me. Okay, so we are very open, and Mr. Anderson, from my understanding, he's a very open person. So you can type in any question. I will relate it to him, and I know he will give us 100% very candid advice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will call you guys, Helen. Hey, if you can talk, ask Mr. Anderson how to get into Harvard or Yale Law School Okay, ask him and he will tell you. Okay, so Helen, say hi and ask my friend any question. Okay, he will give me your far better answer than I can do. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No.
Oh,
hi.
The
Hi.
floor is yours, Helen.
Helen.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, great. I accidentally closed my window, so I can't see any of you guys right now.
Oh.
But it's okay. I can just talk. Hi. I'm really, really happy to hear you saying that you love my culture and you think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Like when I was younger, I don't really understand my own culture basically. Like we're just like reciting all those like ancient articles, but I don't really understand them. But after I came to America, I start to kind of like understand more about like both culture in America and my own country. So like I'm just really happy to hear you saying that. Can you talk a little bit about the transcendentalism in both China and America? Because for last quarter, I was studying about Thoreau and Emerson's work. Thoreau's work that like how I live, where I live, and like that book, like where he wrote near the Walden Lake.
Mm-hmm.
And then and also Emerson's essay like about self-reliance. Can you kind of relate it to like one of the Chinese poet who lived at the Song Dynasty? I bet you must heard of him. His name is Su Shi. Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, like because I was watching a documentary during a summer, and it's about him. It talk about him how he lived both kind of within the society but also above the society, that he could like live a really normal life, because I'm so sorry. I don't know how to describe it,
No,
but
I understand.
so his life is not really smooth, but like he started to understand that he can both like live in a really high place or just live like a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
I think because when I learned about Thoreau and Emerson, I don't really I don't really agree with Thoreau, but I feel like Emerson's point is makes more sense because he is saying that you should be able to like live in a harmonious uh, way in the society because I feel like Thoreau is kind of like I don't really want to live in this society and I gotta move out of it and like high in the mountain. So I don't really agree with him, but I feel like Emerson and Saussure is kind of like relate, kind of like similar. Can you like talk some your opinions about this?
Well, thank you, Helen. That's a very interesting. You already have a very interesting observation about the comparison between Emerson, Thoreau, and somebody like Susha. Susha, from the time that he. Well, I first wanted to say something else. I was impressed when you said that when you came to the U.S., you felt you were beginning to understand more about ancient Chinese culture and society, and I think that that was my experience too. When I went abroad to China for the first time, I finally could understand American society better because I had removed myself. I was outside. I could look back. If you're in the middle, you don't really know. It's difficult to reflect on what it is that people say and why they do things. And so when you step away from, and I think this is related, and this is the case of Thoreau's case, he wants to step away from society. He wanted to step out of the social norm, particularly when he felt that it was something that he didn't agree with, and he felt that people had the right to maintain a principled opinion, even if it was in opposition to some official idea of how people should behave in one time or another. But I think Su Dongpo, if you were to talk about him as a transcendentalist, it's a little bit early because the 11th century was not infused with the same sense of a sort of pantheism, kind of a pantheistic idea of sort of the divine found in the natural order. It was more, he was influenced by more Taoist ideas, more Dao Jiao. His influences are coming from he had to, and he also was politically, his career went up and down, and when it went down and he was in exile in southern China, that was a time where he, I think, acted more the way that you just described. He was out of his official position, he was outside of society, and he had to then apply he had to kind of find his place in the larger world order and in sort of the natural order, because he was no longer deeply involved in political affairs, and sort of his social status had changed, and many things had changed. Even though he returns, his career went up and down, and so in those periods, I think that there is some similarity between what you were saying about Emerson's idea of where a person stands in the world, and how you're supposed, and finding your place, like fitting into the world, and the natural world being part of that. But I'm not a scholar. It's been a long time since I studied American literature and American philosophy. That was actually shortly before I met Mr. Ha, was the last time that I had in-depth discussion about Thoreau. So I was ready to talk to Mr. Ha when we were classmates together, and I haven't reviewed my notes for a long time since then.
20 years notebook.
That's
Do you
right.
still have it? Okay.
Maybe
But I
someplace.
do have a memory that in Nanjing we have a discussion about Thoreau, and you are
Oh, yeah.
more skeptical about Thoreau because you said he's basically from your area of the United States, right? Thoreau,
Yes.
Emerson, are they from Connecticut or Massachusetts?
Massachusetts.
So they are
And-
Massachusetts.
And
So they are
Thoreau,
from-
Thoreau said he wanted to remove himself from society, but he would still go Sundays to have dinner with Emerson once in a while. So it was not a real removal from society. He didn't really go off and live in the mountains. He just lived a few miles outside of town. I mean, so his idea of sacrifice and really removing oneself is more philosophical than it is actual. He didn't actually practice all the things that he speaks about in his writing on Walden Pond.
So I'm really very happy that Helen asked a question because it really opened my mind, bring me back a good memory about my conversation with Mr. Anderson way back. So I remember actually Thoreau actually influenced me a lot. And Mr. Anderson's understanding of transcendentalism is very correct. I totally agree with his observation of compare Su Dongpo with Thoreau is even Emerson, a little more detached than with Tao Qian. If you talk about Tao Yuanming, and he's more like a Taoist, and in his time, he's a more anti-establishment because he's more related with Cao Wei 政权, Cao Cao 的政权 than with the Jin Chao. Okay, so he's more like anti-establishment, and his philosophical foundation is more Taoism. It's more Taoism because his friend more study Dao De Jing, okay, study Zhuangzi, and he really gave up his office and going back to the mountains. Okay, so 此中有真意，欲辨与妄言。OK， 这种诗句里边的采菊东篱下，悠然见南山 ，it's more closely to Thoreau, and we talk about Thoreau's self-reliance and Thoreau's anti-imperialism. Okay, in 1948. When the United States, a lot of people in Washington, in academia, in West Point, they want the social promotion. They want to build an empire. The army already conquered Mexican City. And most of the people at that time, when the country is growing, they're happy. Because they feel a proudness, right? And like a young man, they will do that. Because for a lot of career climber, it's open a lot of opportunity for the young people. And for the people who want to expand industry, for the politicians, for the intellectuals, they feel our pride. So when the country is growing, number one thing is be careful, be very careful. And that's really relevant right now in our current age. So he's the only one who actually withdrew. He refused to pay taxes. He refused to pay taxes even at the risk of his personal freedom. He stayed in jail. So in that term, I have more admiration of Tao Qian and Thoreau, because he's the person who willing for sacrifice, not only for his friends. He's detached from his close friends with social understanding, but also he's a confrontation with the mainstream pressure. Tao Qian, he and his group like Qi Kang actually lose his neck for not cooperating with the pressure of the government to be official. Okay, in term of Su Dongpe, to my understanding, his understanding is more reflection of a combination of Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. He have all three of them, but mainly he's a Confucianist.
Yeah.
But mainly he's a Confucianist. His whole family, his father, he and his brother are deeply identified with the government. So he is less a transcendentalist. He's only more have a Taoist tendency when he's really losing the political battle. So that's the Mr. Anderson study Wang Anshi 变法. Okay, these are very aggressive politicians, very aggressive, a mixture of a Confucianism and a legalistic idea. Oh, okay, Wang Anshi is an aggressive person. He's a very aggressive, but Shu Shi, when he 被贬黄州, when he was kicked out from the central government, he is seeking personal peace with the environment. He's not aggressively participating in the framing of society. He's asking for personal peace, immersing himself with the natural environment. But Emerson and his students Thoreau is more like he's using his example to framing society. Whether he's successful or not, I don't know. But I know he is probably, Mr. Anderson, you will tell them whether I'm true or not. He's one of the most famous Harvard alumni. Is that true or not true? But he didn't graduate.
Most famous Harvard alumni.
Yeah.
But he didn't so he's the same as Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates. They didn't graduate.
So Bill Gates and Zuckerberg, the Facebook guy, right? And
yes.
Emerson, the three of them didn't graduate.
Yes.
So these people have a lot of influence. Okay, that's an interesting conversation. So Helen, congratulations. You gave us a very good question.
Yes,
and
very good question.
Yeah, very good question, and you know, that's wonderful. Okay, I see Emily. Okay, Emily, ask Mr. Anderson anything. For example, about his experience in Beijing and how he liked Beijing 烤鸭. That's a good question enough. Okay, but you know, Emily, give him a hard time. He won't be offended. Okay, I know that.
Yeah.
How do you think about the Chinese food?
Chinese food, I like.
Yeah.
Beijing Thai is very good. I lived in outside of do you know Ritan 公园?
Yes.
Chaoyangchu. So I was living over in Chaoyang district for 1 year with my family, and my two daughters went to Fangsaodi Xiaoxue. And nearby Fangsaodi, there were several restaurants, including, well, not Beijing 烤鸭, but more Beifang Cai. Like big, one restaurant had Shandong Cai, one had Chuan Cai. That was very good, kind of. And I think that Chinese, maybe you find, where are you now, Emily? Are you in Maryland? Is that what Mr. Ha said?
Emily, are you in Texas or in Beijing? Where are you right now?
In Texas.
Oh, okay.
In Texas. Okay.
Yeah.
So to find good Beijing style food probably is not very easy. Well, maybe Houston area it's easier than in North Carolina. We have one restaurant. We have one restaurant that tastes any good. Chinese restaurant.
In North Carolina, right?
Yes, only one.
Wow. Maybe I need to give up my teaching job and go in there to set up a restaurant. Maybe at least I have one customer. Okay.
Yes, it'll be very successful.
Okay. Thank you, Emily. That's a good question. Let me get some other questions from my students, and they cannot refuse me, right?
And I had a question on a text, but I don't know how to text. I'm trying to figure out. Oh, okay.
The chat. You can.
The chat.
Yeah.
Yep. But Helen asked a good question. Yeah, I think that Su Shi is a very special personality. The other officials that were at the same time, like even Wang Anshi and Sima Guang, were not very cheery people. Not very. I think Su Shi had a good attitude compared to those other officials.
Mm-hmm.
Especially Wang Anshi. I mean, I think he's not a very pleasant person, but very influential.
Very influential.
Okay. Yes, I'm gonna try to. Okay. So any other questions? Does anyone have a question?
So sometimes I have to ask them to ask questions, but usually they will humor me. And let's see. Zhang Rongjun, I see you very active here. You start your video and then you are still in Beijing, so you can ask any question. He's from Xi'an.
Oh, wow.
He's studying in Beijing, and I think he is planning to study in the United States.
Wow.
So, Zhang Rongjun, why don't you ask Mr. Anderson, how can he help you to get into Harvard?
Yeah. So,
ask him anything.
You think how can I get to Harvard?
How to get to Harvard? I know in Beijing they have interviews. What grade are you now in? Which grade are you in right now?
I'm 11th grade.
Okay, so next year you have a chance to do an interview with somebody who went to Harvard, an alumni or alumna. I think you should take the opportunity to talk to somebody who would send a report to Harvard if you're applying to Harvard in your application, to have the personal interview. I think would be helpful because it gives the interviewer a chance to say something about you personally, your personality, who you are. And sometimes in the applications they don't have that sort of information. They have to imagine what they think an applicant is like. But when they actually get a chance to speak to or receive a report from someone who spoke to you, it's a big help. Because I know that I help here in North Carolina to do interviewing. And I think that the office in Cambridge appreciates to have that chance to talk to people who have talked to the students who are applying.
So you know about the Harvard, they actually only accept some top students. It's a university very hard to get in.
I know. It's hard.
Maybe.
It's getting harder. Yeah.
So maybe we can choose another way to get in, like not use our grades, because like Harvard, like some famous university, they also accept some people with special background, like participate in Afghanistan war or something.
That's true. But some things, when you're applying, you don't have it. The applicant, the student, doesn't have any control over. Sometimes the admissions office is looking to have a balanced class. They want to have people with certain experiences, so that artists and athletes and scientists and they want to have some balance. So your best skill is what you should put forward, and then but also think of other good schools. There in the U.S. there are many good schools that are there too.
That's good.
So because Jamie, Mr. Anderson is a academic head of his history department, so he has experience interview students. And also last time I talked with you about Jeffrey is about you were interviewing students for Harvard in the Atlanta area.
Yeah.
So some of the experience, some of the advice you gave me and give my son is actually very important. Basically, Zhang Rongjun, Mr. Anderson's idea is that you prepare your best selling points. You prepare yourself to be a material, and if you Harvard don't want you, it's their fault. Is they didn't select you, but you have to make yourself interesting. So
Yes.
that means kind of contributing to them. So ask them to contribute to your career, okay, your future.
Okay.
So that is also very important. And also there's a many other alternatives. It's basically, for my understanding, is very important to know what you want. That's, I think, for all of you. And 美金榜的老师们 is actually helping you guys to do interview, how to train you to do interview, because a lot of Chinese students, especially from the mainland education system, actually are very shy and don't know how to express themselves, especially at the first time. So this type of experience training can be very, very important. Okay. So Mr. Anderson, he said he had a good experience, meet interesting people. I think that is actually very important. For
many interesting people. I think that was. I think the friendships. I think friendship, as Mr. Ha said, you learn more from your classmates sometimes than you learn from your professors. In some settings, that's the case. It certainly was the case in Nanjing when we were at the Hopkins, John Hopkins Center. We learned a lot from each other. The students, Chinese students, American students, we learned a lot from each other. But in college too, I had many really good conversations with people that I remember more than some of the lectures I heard from my teachers. It's actually, I shouldn't say that with your teacher here, but.
Which is true, I think, which is true. Okay, Xin, I think we meet very often, and I think I will meet with you tomorrow, face to face. Why don't you ask Mr. Anderson some question? So I can follow up with you tomorrow during the Sunday time. Tomorrow morning, he's going to come to my office, and we'll have a 2-hour talk. Xin, use the opportunity to give Mr. Anderson some hard time, and you can benefit a lot.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. Oh, y'all, start your video. Don't be shy. Conquer your shyness. That's your #1 learning experience. That's why you are, take all the trouble to study overseas.
Yeah.
Okay. Overcome your shyness, because if you are willing to express yourself, you have nothing to lose. Okay. And I'm pretty sure Mr. Anderson won't blame you.
No.
Okay, Xin, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Xin, ask him any question. Concern your class, any class. Okay. American history, American literature, your whole learning experience, and the next one will be Helen. She just raised up her hand. But since this is a good opportunity, because tomorrow I'm going to follow up with your question.
What are you interested in right now? What are you studying?
World history.
History? Oh, world history. Oh, okay.
Okay, Mr. Anderson is teaching Chinese history, Vietnamese history, the whole East Asian history.
Yeah.
Give him a hard time about you choose any country. How about that? So it's also my test to him to see how after our separation, how good or how bad his academic advancement.
Okay. We'll find out.
Since my order to you is to give him a hard time. Select Vietnam, Korea, Japan, any country. Give him a hard time.
Have you studied East Asia in your world history yet, or you studied
Do,
European and Latin American? I'm trying to remember that. Are you in AP world history?
I have a question. Do you know Tang Taizong?
Yeah,
What do you think of him?
Tang Taizong, Li Shiming.
Yeah.
I think that he's the power behind the Tang Dynasty. I mean, Tang Taizu his own father doesn't matter as much as he did in terms of establishing Tang power.
What do you think how he killed his brother and become the emperor?
Oh, well, I think ethically, that's not a very good thing to be involved in murdering your own family members. But in the politics of that time, to be at the top is a very dangerous position to be in. So I think he established himself as a good ruler of China after having done things that ethically or morally you wouldn't practice today. You wouldn't do today. But it's hard to judge historical people the way we judge people today. There's a difference between his day and our day in that. So,
And
but yeah.
do you know Wu Zetian?
Definitely.
Wu Zetian,
What
yeah.
about Wu Zetian you want to ask him?
Yeah.
Do you think she how do you think of her? Like
I think that she also, because of the early Tang Dynasty was more open, was more cosmopolitan, was more accepting of sort of the outside world, because it was a very strong and confident time. I think Wu Zetian came along at a good time for her to do what she did and sort of establish her power, establish her own name as really the only ruler, a woman to rule as the outright ruler of China. I mean, I think that I would call her a great ruler, but Chinese Confucian scholars later found many faults with her, mainly because they were the men who were the scholars in later days couldn't accept what she had accomplished. So I think they attacked her character, and so in history she doesn't look very good in classical history. She doesn't look like a very good person. But I think that that's a later historian's way of getting back at her because she was so powerful in her time. That's my understanding. Maybe a very American.
One reason is that most of the Chinese historian was male.
Yes.
Okay, so since if you want to be a historian, you will write about her differently. Most of the Confucius scholar, or they are very protective about their own social standing, right? Yeah. So if you think about, in the Chinese history, he's the only emperor who practiced power, who have the experience, actually expand the Tang territorial and make political change. Yeah. Make a lot of political change that is meaningful, that expanded the Tang ruling capacity, efficiency. That's the only time a female practice leadership without have to hide behind an emperor. Yes. That is very unique. Give credit to the Chinese female politician. But the only trouble is there's not enough female historian. There's a female poet like Li Qingzhao, but there is not many female historian with the stature of Wang Fuzhi and these people. Okay, if there's a female historian and can make a strong case like Wang Fuzhi, then that would be very different. That would be very different. So keep on studying your world history. So tomorrow we'll have a session to ask me a question. I will follow up this one with you. These are very good questions about Tang Taizong. Actually, I gave American education system, the AP, which I criticize very often, some credit. They even talk about the Chinese Sui dynasty and the Tang Taizong. They think about how the Chinese high school, the exposure of Middle East, the Middle East of Persian Empire is really limited. I didn't learn anything about that period. So I have to finish my self-study. So I gave AP World History credit. So I think you guys need to use the opportunity to compare textbook. Today, actually, in today's class, in high school's class, I mentioned about it's a very great opportunity for you guys to compare the Chinese history, American history, maybe Persian history, how their high school, college textbook talk about the same issue. Because you know what? Historians lie. They have their, sometimes not intentionally, especially when they have unified textbook, right? So they have a vast interest of observing the same thing from different perspective. But if you put the full textbook together and compare notes, usually you are more near the actual truth. You are more near than just one textbook, which is often the same thing like a brainwashing. Okay, so open yourself, and you guys are in a very enviable position. Okay, just hold that position well. Okay, I think our time. Oh, exactly on time. So I want to hold our class exactly on time. I think I will use the opportunity to thank Mr. Anderson. And I'm so glad I have this opportunity after so many years to catch up. And I hope we have 11 people, and sometimes we even have 15. And hopefully I would have the opportunity to invite Mr. Anderson back and have a good exchange with this, our wonderful group. Again, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank
Hapu, it
you.
was very nice to talk to you and see everyone.
See everybody. Bye. Thank you, Jamie.
Bye-bye.
We'll catch up tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.